Hi, how you doing? It's me, it's Jim. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, we talk about, listen to, and do all sorts of things music-y. Today, I am talking about something I have never, ever talked about before. And that is Rick Beato. And I'm not really talking about him, more a case I want to make a response, I guess, to a video that he's made. The thumbnail, WTF happened. The description, the real reason why music is getting worse. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's actually it's a very, very interesting video. It makes some very compelling points talking about some of the stuff that I've talked about a little bit, listening to music on streaming services as opposed to listening to a physical thing. That's one part. But the second part is talking about music creation. And the reason why music now is bad, I'm paraphrasing, is because it's easy to make. It kind of makes sense if you think about what he's saying, that if you went back to the times before we had recording studios or automation in recording studios or multi-track recording, say, so 1950s, everything was recorded in one go by artists who had rehearsed and practiced and learnt and spent years learning their instrument, able to read music, had played together for a long time, so were a tight-knit band. And recording medium, tape, or even sort of going back beyond that, where it's wax cylinders and stuff like that, was very expensive. You didn't want to mess it up, so you practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced until when you're ready to go record, it was the perfect performance and it was captured. As costs have come down and technology has introduced all these amazing functions into the music creation process, then it stands to reason that you don't need to rehearse and to practice and to play as well as you have done it every other time, because if you make a mistake, that's okay, just go back over it and record again. And he used examples of punching in and out on tapes in the 1960s and 70s, overdubs, the introduction of sampling using auto-tune where you could correct the pitch, the use of computers and computer instruments replacing actual instruments, so using sample packs to replace all the sounds of the drums, for example, and so on and so forth. And on one hand, you think about this and say, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. This is a very, very compelling argument as to why a lot of music sounds very formulaic. It sounds identikit. So it's like everyone's music's come out of this big identikit. You've got a certain amount of sounds. Everyone's using the same sounds. And it breeds a space for dull, uninteresting, and lifeless, soulless music. I think we could all agree with that to some point or another. But I kind of want to counter that as well, because on one hand, I know there is incredible music being made today. You just have to look for it. It's not necessarily where you would have seen it 15, 20, 30 years ago in chart. Even then, it wasn't in the charts, wasn't it? You need to go back to 30 or 40 years to have really good sort of music in the charts. But there are amazing bands. There are small record labels putting out incredible music by incredibly talented musicians who have spent their careers learning their instruments, learning their trade, learning their craft. And that is absolutely 100% true. But I also feel that to say that because making it is easy means that it's bad is really unfair as well, because it's been a real democratization of the process of this sort of creative thing. There are people who've got these amazing ideas and we'll never hear them, or may never hear them, because they can't get it out of their heads and onto paper, onto manuscript, or into an instrument they could play. So they'll just have an idea and it'll just be a tune they hum forevermore. It could have been something amazing. Now, with the advent of all this technology that has enabled the production of music to everybody, with a minimum requirements, maybe a laptop or even an iPad or an iPhone, you can do it. Anybody, if they have got the time and the ideas, can make music. You just don't need to have that pesky having to learn an instrument or be able to play an instrument. Is that a bad thing? I don't think it is. I think that you don't have to listen to it, but I think that being able to produce music, that anybody can produce music, is a fantastic thing. So everybody wants to be able to express themselves in some way or another. I could also argue the same about what I'm doing here with a camera, creating stuff on YouTube. I'm not a trained videographer, filmmaker, presenter, journalist, anything at all. I'm just a bloke sitting here with a camera and a microphone. And I've learnt on the job, as it were. I've learnt as I've gone along, and I kind of do it okay. A true artist has to do something, whether they're paid for it or not. It is absolutely a way of them dealing with the world, dealing with themselves, dealing with emotion, dealing with relationships, dealing with everything. It's a way to do it. It's their way to do it. And whether people are paid or not, they'll still do it. And it is the case with filmmakers, with writers, with poets, with artists, sculptors, painters, game designers. Anything that is seen as an art form should be open and available to all. This is where it gets really tricky. Why should there be a gatekeeper? Who decides what is good and what isn't? Certainly not me. I decide what I want to listen to and what I enjoy, but I'm not going to decide on other people what they should be listening to and enjoying. And I don't think anybody should. And that Rick should say that whatever it is, the tens of thousands of songs that are added to iTunes, to Spotify every day is a problem. Well, maybe it is, but I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that there are moments, there is greatness in music, and we can easily identify it, whether it's a 1970s recording by Steely Dan, or by Pink Floyd, or by Yes, or by Tangerine Dream, or the Rolling Stones, or the Beatles, or Led Zeppelin, or. There are absolute moments of greatness, and there are all the way through to now. There are also huge vats, barrels of mediocrity and dirge all the way through. Some people like it. A lot of people like it now because it is the most easily accessible, most easily digestible content. I really don't like using the word content because that detracts from what it actually is. But it kind of is. It's content. It's not. It's no longer art. It is content. It's stuff to fill up YouTube, Spotify, anything else. They need to. It's like a newspaper doesn't write itself. It needs to have stuff written. So however small a story might be, it'll be in there. Well, it's the same with Spotify. It is the same with YouTube. It is the same with Netflix. It needs more stuff all the time being introduced into it because that's the society we live in. I think that's the biggest problem. It's the society where we are. It's where we live. It's how we live. It's this constant plugged into the digital world that I have talked about before. That is really the problem. It's not that people want to make music. It's not that music making is now easy or can be easy for many people. Look for decent music and you will find it. Now, I'm not going to tell you what decent music is. I'll tell you what my decent music is, what I like. But everyone is different. Everybody has their own ideas of what they like. Go and find it. Don't just rely on what you're told to listen to. I ain't going to tell you. I'll see you on the next video, whenever and whatever that is. Until then, this is Jim, over and out.